The truck hadn't moved in 73 days. My daughter was the first person to notice. Not me. Not the armed neighbors across the street. Not the men who still took turns watching the intersection from the roof of the old insurance building. A 7-year-old girl with a fever did. "Mama." Nia's voice came from the window. I looked up from the kitchen counter where I was trying to divide a single can of peaches into 3 meals. "The medicine truck is still there." I followed her gaze. The white delivery truck sat exactly where it always had, angled halfway across the pharmacy parking lot 3 blocks away. Its back doors were open. Its cargo ramp touched the pavement. Nobody had approached it in weeks. Nobody dared. The outbreak had taught us that abandoned things were rarely abandoned. Sometimes infected wandered into buildings and stayed there for days. Sometimes desperate survivors used obvious supplies as bait. Sometimes both. Nia pressed her forehead against the glass. Her skin looked pale. Too pale. The fever had returned overnight. I crossed the room immediately. "Move away from the window." "But Daddy said he'd come back from that direction." My chest tightened. 3 months. 3 months since Owen left. 3 months since he kissed our daughter on the forehead and promised he'd be home before dark. 3 months since he walked out carrying an empty backpack and a crowbar. 3 months since the world decided promises didn't matter anymore. Nia still waited every morning, every afternoon, every evening. Always the same window, always the same route, always the same certainty. Daddy knows where home is. I swallowed. So do a lot of people who never made it back. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Immediately, I regretted them. Nia looked down. The hurt in her eyes lasted only a second. A child learning how to hide disappointment far too young. "I'm sorry," I said. She nodded. But she wasn't listening anymore. She was staring toward the truck again. The door moved. I froze. "What?" "The truck." I stepped beside her. The pharmacy sat at the far end of the avenue. Distance distorted details. The morning sun reflected off shattered storefronts. For several seconds, I saw nothing unusual. Then something shifted inside the cargo bay. Not much, just enough. A shadow. Movement. Someone was inside. My heartbeat quickened. 3 months after collapse, human movement was rarer than infected sightings. The infected wandered constantly. People learned not to. People stayed hidden. People survived by becoming invisible. I grabbed the binoculars from the shelf. The lenses were scratched but usable. I focused on the truck. For a moment I thought it was an infected. Then the figure stood fully upright. Human. Definitely human. Wearing a dark jacket, holding something. Looking around carefully. Not shambling, not infected. Human. My pulse jumped. Because the figure wasn't alone. Another person emerged behind them. Then another. 3 survivors. The first people we'd seen near the pharmacy in over a month. Nia smiled instantly. Maybe Daddy found them. I lowered the binoculars. That hurt more than if she'd cried. Because she genuinely believed it. Every stranger became a possibility. Every silhouette became hope. Every distant movement became evidence. Meanwhile, I knew something she didn't. The city wasn't getting safer. It was getting emptier. And emptier was worse. Less noise meant fewer distractions. Less distraction meant the infected noticed movement faster. The survivors still alive had either become extremely dangerous or extremely lucky. Neither option comforted me. A sudden crash echoed from somewhere beyond the intersection. The three figures reacted immediately. They ran. Not toward safety, away from something. I raised the binoculars again and saw what was chasing them. At least 15 infected. Fast, too fast. Not sprinting, not like the first weeks. The infected had changed. Again. The early ones charged blindly. These hunted differently. They moved in coordinated bursts. Stopping, watching, then advancing together, like wolves testing a fence. The survivors disappeared into a building. The infected followed. Seconds later, the street became quiet again. Nia grabbed my sleeve. What happened? I kept watching. Nothing emerged. No one came back out. The silence told me enough. They're gone. Her face fell. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then she surprised me. You don't think Daddy's dead? It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Children notice things adults think they're hiding. I looked at her. Really looked. Messy black hair, oversized sweater, fever-flushed cheeks. The little scar near her eyebrow from falling off a scooter years ago. 7 years old, forced to grow up inside the end of the world. I don't know, I admitted. That was the truth. Not hope, not despair, just uncertainty. The most exhausting thing a person can carry. Nia returned to the window, and that frightened me more than the infected, because she wasn't waiting anymore. She was watching, like someone expecting a sign, like someone looking for proof. Outside, the abandoned truck sat beneath the morning sun. 73 days. Unmoved, unopened, ignored by everyone. For the first time, I found myself wondering why. And why Owen had chosen that pharmacy instead of any other. At noon, somebody knocked on our apartment door. Nobody had knocked in 51 days. The knock came again. 3 slow taps, then silence. Every muscle in my body locked. Nia looked at me. I looked at the handgun hidden beneath the couch cushion. Nobody knocked anymore. Normal people announced themselves. Dangerous people tested reactions. The infected simply broke things. 3 taps, wait. 3 taps, wait. Deliberate, human. I moved quietly across the apartment. Nia already knew the routine. She disappeared into the hallway closet without being told. The closet wasn't a hiding place. It was a listening place. Somewhere she could hear me. Somewhere I could reach her. I approached the door. Who is it? Nothing. Then a woman's voice. Tessa. My blood ran cold. I hadn't heard anyone use my name in weeks. Who are you? Open the peephole. I didn't. Instead, I stepped sideways. A lesson Owen had taught me. Never stand directly in front of a closed door. Tell me your name. A pause. Then, Marisol Vega. The name meant nothing. I stayed silent. Then she said something impossible. Owen Reed carried a photograph of you and a little girl. The apartment seemed to tilt beneath me. I gripped the wall. Nia's closet door creaked slightly. Listening, waiting. My husband had left 91 days ago. No confirmed sightings, no messages, no radio contact, nothing. And now a stranger knew his name. I unlocked only the deadbolt. The door opened 3 inches. A woman stood outside. Late 30s, thin, exhausted, holding a baseball bat. Not threatening, not relaxed either. The look of someone who had survived by assuming the worst. Behind her stood a teenage boy carrying a backpack. Neither appeared infected. Neither appeared surprised by my caution. "Where did you see him?" I asked. Marisol glanced down the hallway. "Inside first." "No. He told me you'd say that." My heartbeat stopped. "What?" "He said if I ever found you, you'd make me prove everything." The woman slowly reached into her jacket. I nearly drew the pistol. Instead, she produced a folded photograph. She slid it across the floor. I picked it up. It was ours. A family photo from Nia's 6th birthday, the one Owen kept in his wallet. I stared at it, unable to breathe. Marisol's voice softened. He was alive 23 days after he left. Not yesterday, not last week, but alive. Longer than I'd believed, long enough to matter, long enough to change everything. And suddenly the medicine truck outside didn't seem nearly as abandoned as it had that morning. Because for the first time in 3 months, I had evidence. Not hope, not imagination. Evidence. And evidence can be far more dangerous than hope. I didn't invite Marisol inside immediately. Hope had gotten people killed long before the infected ever showed up. I made her wait in the hallway while I asked questions. Lots of them. Questions Owen would have expected. Questions only someone who'd actually met him could answer. What color was his backpack? Green. What was broken on it? The left shoulder strap. He repaired it with black duct tape. Which hand did he favor when carrying his crowbar? The right. How did he introduce himself? Marisol smiled faintly. He didn't. I had to force his name out of him. That sounded exactly like Owen. He wasn't antisocial, just careful, especially around strangers. The boy beside her finally spoke. "Can we come in now? We've been standing in this hallway for 10 minutes. His voice carried the exhausted irritation of someone who'd been surviving too long. Marisol shot him a look. "Jace." "What?" "They're pointing guns at us." "They're not pointing guns. They're thinking about it." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I opened the door. Just enough. The 3 of us moved into the apartment. Nia emerged from the closet. The second she heard Owen's name, she'd stopped hiding. Now she stood in the hallway, staring at Marisol. "Did you really meet my dad?" Marisol hesitated. Not because she was lying, because she was choosing her words carefully. "Yes." Nia stepped forward. "When?" "About 2 months ago." "Was he okay?" Another hesitation. This one worried me. "He was tired." "Not okay, not dead, something in between." The answer satisfied Nia more than it satisfied me. She immediately ran to the window, as if her father might magically appear now, as if information could summon people. Marisol watched her, then looked at me. "She's still waiting." I nodded. "Every day." Marisol didn't respond right away. Instead, she stared toward the pharmacy, toward the truck, toward the same place Owen had disappeared. Her expression changed. Subtle, but unmistakable. Recognition. "You've been watching that truck." It wasn't a question. No. A lie. She knew it. I knew it. Jace rolled his eyes. "Everybody watches that truck." My attention snapped toward him. "What do you mean?" The teenager dropped his backpack beside the couch. "People think medicine is still inside." The room became very quiet. Marisol immediately looked annoyed. "Jace?" "What?" "They deserve to know." I stepped closer. "What medicine?" The boy looked directly at me. "Insulin." My stomach dropped. Nia had type 1 diabetes. Not severe, manageable. Before the world ended. Now, every vial mattered. Every pen mattered. Every dose mattered. 3 months after collapse, insulin was more valuable than ammunition, more valuable than gasoline, more valuable than almost anything. Because once it ran out, there were no factories making more. No trucks delivering supplies. No pharmacies restocking shelves. Nothing. I looked toward my daughter. She sat by the window, coloring on scraps of paper, completely unaware of the conversation. Completely unaware that survival had become a countdown. Marisol saw my reaction and understood immediately. Your daughter. I nodded. She closed her eyes. For a second, she looked genuinely sad. Then she reached into her backpack, carefully, slowly, producing a small, insulated pouch. My breath caught. No way. She placed it on the table. I opened it. Inside sat 2 insulin pens, unopened, still cold. I stared at them, unable to process what I was seeing. The insulated pack contained partially melted cooling packs. The medicine had survived. Somehow. Where did you get these? The truck. The room vanished around me. The truck. The truck that hadn't moved. The truck nobody approached. The truck Owen disappeared chasing. I looked up sharply. You got inside, Jace snorted. Not exactly. Marisol shot him another warning look, then turned back to me. The truck isn't abandoned. A chill spread through my body. Outside, beyond the window, the white vehicle sat motionless beneath the afternoon sunlight. 3 blocks away, silent, empty-looking, waiting. The infected guarded. I stared. What? They don't enter it. That makes no sense. I know. How many? Marisol's face darkened. Depends on the day. That wasn't the answer I wanted, because it implied something worse. A pattern, behavior, purpose. The infected weren't supposed to protect things. They weren't supposed to patrol. They weren't supposed to wait. The outbreak had already rewritten enough rules. I didn't want another one. Jace crossed his arms. Owen thought the same thing. The room froze. What did he say? The boy shrugged. He thought something was wrong with the truck. My pulse quickened. Why? Because nobody ever saw anyone unload it. Marisol took over. It arrived after most of the city had already collapsed. I listened carefully. Every word mattered. It came from the Eastern Distribution Center. That's impossible. Exactly. The Eastern Center fell first. Everyone knew that. It had been overrun during the first week. Thousands trapped. Thousands dead. No deliveries left after that. Yet, somehow, a medicine truck appeared weeks later, fully loaded, and parked itself beside the pharmacy, like it had arrived from nowhere. Like someone wanted it there. Then Marisol said the sentence that changed everything. Owen believed someone was still using it. Not scavenging, using, present tense. A system, an operation, something functioning after the collapse. And suddenly my husband's disappearance looked less like bad luck, and more like an investigation. That night, Nia's fever climbed higher. By sunset, she was sweating through her blanket. By midnight, she couldn't stop shivering. I sat beside her mattress listening to every breath, counting seconds between coughs, checking blood sugar levels, calculating supplies, calculating time, always time. The world had become a giant clock. Every survivor measured life differently, Food, water, ammo, medicine, distance. I measured insulin, and now fever. Outside, darkness swallowed the city. The old power grid had died months ago. Only scattered fires and occasional flashlights broke the blackness. From the window, the abandoned avenue looked like the bottom of the ocean. Silent, empty, dangerous. Around 1 in the morning, I heard movement. Not inside, outside. I approached the window carefully. Something crossed the intersection. Fast, human-sized. Then another. Then 3 more. I grabbed the binoculars. The figures weren't infected. At least I didn't think they were. They moved too deliberately, too quietly, all heading toward the pharmacy. Toward the truck. A scavenging team. The first I'd seen attempted. I watched them disappear between buildings. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing happened. Maybe Marisol was wrong. Maybe the truck really was abandoned. Then the screaming started. A single scream. Cut short. Another. Then gunfire. 3 shots. 4. 5. Silence. Complete silence. The kind that feels unnatural. The kind that makes your stomach hurt. The street remained empty. No survivors emerged. No infected appeared. Nothing. As though the darkness had swallowed everyone whole. Behind me, Marisol stood in the hallway, watching too. She looked tired. Not surprised. That's the 3rd group this month. I lowered the binoculars. Nobody comes back. No. Why? I don't know. The honesty made her more believable. People who lied always had answers. Real survivors carried uncertainty. Jace emerged from the kitchen holding a flashlight. Tell her the rest. Marisol sighed. The sound carried weeks of frustration. We followed Owen once. Every nerve in my body tightened. What? He didn't know. I stared. You followed him? He was getting close. My throat felt dry. Close to what? Marisol looked toward the truck, then toward my sleeping daughter, then back to me. Whatever was hidden inside. I waited. She continued. We lost him near the pharmacy. My heart pounded. Lost him how? Her answer came quietly. Something chased us away. What? I never saw it. Not infected. Not a person. Something. The uncertainty bothered me more than certainty would have. Then she reached into her backpack again, this time producing a folded map. Old, worn, covered in notes. She spread it across the table. Red markings covered entire sections of the city. Routes, observations, supply locations. Warnings. One location was circled repeatedly, the pharmacy. And beside it, written in Owen's handwriting, the truck is not the target. Find who keeps refilling it. I stared at the words. My husband had written them. No question, no doubt. His handwriting, his pressure marks, his style, alive, focused, investigating, planning. And beneath that message sat one final note. 3 words. 3 words that made every hair on my arm stand up. Someone is working. The city was dead. The government was gone. Supply chains were gone. Hospitals were gone. Yet Owen believed somebody was still operating, still delivering medicine, still moving through infected territory, still maintaining the impossible. The question wasn't whether my husband found them. The question was whether they found him first. And for the first time in 91 days, I realized something terrifying. Owen might not have been trying to come home. He might have been trying to send something back. didn't sleep. Not because of the infected. Not because of the screams near the pharmacy. Not even because someone might still be operating a medicine network inside a dead city. I stayed awake because of 3 words. Someone is working. The sentence kept replaying in my head. Owen wasn't the type to write dramatic theories. He wasn't a conspiracy guy. He didn't chase rumors. Before the outbreak, he repaired medical equipment at St. Gabriel Children's Hospital. His entire job revolved around finding practical explanations. Machines either worked or they didn't. Problems either had causes or they didn't. So if Owen believed someone was working, then someone probably was. By dawn, Nia's fever reached 103. She sat wrapped in blankets beside the window, still watching, always watching. The intersection below looked empty, except for scattered abandoned cars and the skeleton of a city that no longer knew what to do with itself. "Mom." I looked up. "What?" She pointed outside. "The red car." I followed her finger. A rusted sedan sat beside a traffic light. Nothing unusual. Then I noticed the driver's door. Open. Yesterday it had been closed. A small thing. The kind of thing most people ignored. But after 3 months of survival, tiny changes mattered. Tiny changes kept you alive. I picked up the binoculars. The interior looked empty. No movement, no infected. Yet somebody had opened that door. Recently. Nia noticed my expression. "See?" I forced a smile. "Good catch." She looked proud. That hurt. Because children should be proud of spelling tests or soccer games, not identifying survival anomalies. Marisol approached the window. "You need medicine." "I know." "You don't have enough." "I know." "We should move." I turned toward her. "Move where?" "The truck." The answer arrived too fast, too confidently. I didn't like it. "We don't even know what's there." "No." Marisol nodded. "But Owen did." The room fell quiet. Jay sat at the kitchen table sharpening a utility knife. The sound scraped through the apartment. Slow, methodical. The teenager finally looked up. "We're wasting time." I hated that he was right. Every hour mattered. Every day mattered. Every fever mattered. Nia's insulin supplies could keep her alive for maybe 6 weeks. Maybe less if refrigeration failed completely. The apartment had become a waiting room. And waiting rooms only worked when help was coming. Help wasn't coming. Not anymore. I unfolded Owen's map again. The handwriting felt strangely alive, like touching a message from a ghost who refused to become one. Most of the markings centered around the pharmacy, but one route stood out. A series of arrows moving west. Toward the old university district, toward neighborhoods everyone avoided, toward a section of the city almost completely abandoned. At the end of the route, Owen had drawn a simple symbol. A square. Nothing else, no explanation, no notes, just a square. "What is this?" Marisol leaned closer. "No idea." "Did he ever mention it?" "No." Jay stood. "Maybe it's a building. Maybe. Or maybe it's where he went." That possibility settled heavily over the room. Because if Owen had discovered something important, he wouldn't have stopped investigating. That wasn't who he was. The realization arrived slowly. Then all at once, if he wasn't dead, he was still following the trail. And if he was dead, the trail might explain why. I folded the map, decision made. "I'm going." Marisol nodded immediately, as if she'd expected it. Jace looked relieved. Only Nia seemed frightened. Her small fingers tightened around her blanket. Where? I knelt beside her, just checking something. When? Today. Her eyes widened. The panic appeared instantly. Children don't fear danger the same way adults do. They fear absence. They fear people leaving, people not coming back, people disappearing. The outbreak had taught her that lesson far too well. You promised. The words hit harder than they should have. Because she was right. I had promised. After Owen left, I'd promised never to leave her alone. Now I was breaking it, just like he had. I touched her cheek. I'm coming back. She looked toward the window, toward the route her father had taken months earlier. Then back at me. Daddy said that too. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Neither could Marisol. Neither could Jace. Because sometimes a 7-year-old says exactly the thing everyone is trying not to think. We left an hour later. The first step outside felt wrong, almost painful. 3 months of apartment survival had transformed the city into something distant, something viewed through glass, something observed rather than entered. Now I was inside it again. The air smelled different. Dust, rain, rotting vegetation, not death. Death had mostly finished its work. The city smelled like abandonment, like millions of lives suddenly interrupted. Marisol moved ahead, bat in hand, alert, efficient. Jace followed behind, carrying a crossbow he'd assembled from scavenged parts. I stayed between them. Every sound seemed louder outdoors. Every shadow seemed deeper. Every open doorway looked dangerous. We moved quickly, past silent storefronts, past overturned buses, past apartment buildings whose windows stared down like empty eyes. The infected appeared sooner than expected. A woman stood in the middle of an intersection, completely still, head tilted, listening. At first glance, she almost looked normal. That was the worst part. The infected weren't rotting monsters. Not anymore. Most simply looked wrong, like people trapped inside bad dreams. Marisol raised a hand. Stop. We froze. The infected remained motionless. Then another emerged from a nearby alley. Then another. 3, 4, 6, all standing, watching, not attacking, not wandering, watching. My stomach tightened. Jace whispered, I hate when they do that. I understood immediately, because it felt unnatural, predatory. The infected used to be chaotic. Now they seemed patient. The 6 figures slowly turned in our direction, not because they'd seen us, because they'd heard something, far away. A metallic clang echoed through the city. Every infected reacted instantly. Their heads snapped toward the sound. Then they ran, all at once, disappearing between buildings, gone, just like that. I stared after them. What was that? No clue, Jay said. That happens often? More lately. Marisol looked uneasy. That worried me. Nothing seemed to scare her. Yet this clearly did. We continued west. The university district emerged around noon. Unlike downtown, it showed signs of recent activity. Not many, just enough. Footprints, broken locks, fresh graffiti, human traces, evidence, proof. Someone had been here recently. The realization made me both hopeful and afraid. Because evidence of survivors also meant evidence of conflict. People became dangerous long before they became infected. We entered an old administration building. The square symbol on Owen's map matched perfectly. A square courtyard. A square building. A square target. He'd been here. I knew it instantly. The lobby contained dust everywhere, except one path. A trail worn through the dirt by repeated footsteps. Someone used this building regularly, very regularly. Marisol saw it too. Well, Jace exhaled slowly. So much for coincidence. The path led downstairs. Toward darkness. Toward somewhere Owen had wanted us to find. And suddenly the mystery changed. Because we weren't looking for clues anymore. We were following instructions. Instructions left by a man who might have known exactly where this road ended. The question was why he never returned to tell us himself. At the bottom of the stairwell, we found the first message, written directly on the concrete wall. Black marker, large letters, fresh enough to still be readable, and unmistakably written by Owen. If you found this, don't go to the pharmacy. The three of us stopped dead. My heart began hammering, because beneath that warning was another line, one he had written much later, one that looked rushed, almost desperate. The medicine is real. The truck is a test. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The flashlight beam trembled slightly in my hand. Not because I was afraid, because I recognized Owen's handwriting. Every curve, every letter, every impatient slash of ink. It was him. Not a rumor, not a memory, not hope. Proof. Real proof. The first proof I'd had in 91 days. Marisol stepped closer to the wall. When do you think he wrote this? I studied the marker. Some sections looked faded. Others looked newer. Then I noticed something strange. The message had been written in layers. Different dates, different visits. Owen had returned here multiple times. The realization made my pulse quicken. He kept coming back. Jace frowned. What? The handwriting, I pointed. This part was written first. My finger traced the original warning. Don't go to the pharmacy. Then another section beneath it. Written later. The medicine is real. The truck is a test. Then a third line squeezed into the corner, almost hidden. Check the basement. Whatever he learned, I said quietly. He learned it over time. The three of us exchanged looks, then descended deeper. The basement wasn't what I expected. I imagined storage rooms, maintenance tunnels, utility equipment. Instead, we found rows of old university archives. Thousands of boxes, dust-covered shelves, abandoned records. The kind of place nobody would ever visit voluntarily, except somebody had. The evidence was everywhere. Recently moved boxes, fresh footprints, discarded food wrappers, sleeping bags, battery packs. People had lived here. A lot of people. Jace knelt beside a pile of empty water bottles. Recent. How recent? Couple weeks. Marisol's expression darkened. Maybe less. The realization settled over us. Someone had been operating from this building after Owen vanished. Maybe they still were. We continued deeper. The archive corridor curved sharply, then opened into a large underground records room. And that's where we found the board. A massive corkboard covered one entire wall. Maps, notes, photos, routes, observations, names, hundreds of names. Some crossed out, some circled. Some connected with colored strings. The room looked less like a shelter and more like an investigation. My eyes moved across the board, then stopped. Owen Reed. His name sat near the center, connected to dozens of notes. I rushed forward, my heart hammering, every instinct screaming. Please, please let there be something, anything, a clue, a direction, a reason. There was. Pinned beneath his name was a photograph, not of Owen, of the truck, the pharmacy truck. Dozens of handwritten notes surrounded it. Delivery arrives every 11 days. No driver observed. Infected, avoid rear compartment. Unknown personnel active after midnight. Truck contents consistently restocked. I stared. Restocked, not abandoned, not forgotten, maintained. Someone really was working. The implications were staggering. The city had collapsed. Supply chains had collapsed. Yet medicine still appeared. Regularly, predictably, like an invisible system refusing to die. Then I saw the newest note. My breath caught instantly. Possible distribution point discovered. Following route tomorrow. OR, the initials, the date, 29 days ago. Owen's final recorded entry. No notes after that. No updates. Nothing. The trail ended here. Marisol read it over my shoulder. 29 days. I nodded. The room suddenly felt colder, because the timeline mattered. 29 days ago meant Owen survived far longer than we ever imagined. Far longer. He hadn't disappeared during the first chaotic weeks. He vanished while actively investigating something. And somebody had never finished his board. Jace turned away from the notes, toward a stack of filing cabinets. Guys. His voice sounded different, uneasy. I looked up. What? Look at this. He opened the cabinet drawer fully. Inside sat dozens of folders, each labeled with a name. Not random names, survivor names. People who had investigated the truck. People who had disappeared. The realization hit all at once. This wasn't Owen's investigation. Not originally. It belonged to a group, a network, a community. People tracking the same mystery. And judging by the folders, many of them never came back. Then I noticed one final detail. A map hanging beside the cabinet. A route highlighted in red. A route leading east, far beyond the pharmacy, far beyond downtown, toward the river industrial zone, the most dangerous section of the city. At the end of the route sat a handwritten note. Source unknown. Medical activity confirmed. That was where Owen went. I knew it. The certainty arrived instantly, not because of evidence, because of Owen. He always followed unanswered questions, even when he shouldn't, especially when he shouldn't. Then a sound echoed from somewhere above us, a door closing. The three of us froze. Silence followed, heavy silence, the kind that feels alive. We weren't alone in the building anymore. The footsteps started 30 seconds later, slow, measured. Above us, not infected, human. The difference becomes obvious after enough time. Infected move with urgency. Humans move with caution. These were human footsteps, very careful human footsteps. Marisol raised her bat. Jace loaded his crossbow. I shut off my flashlight. The archive room plunged into darkness. Only thin strips of daylight filtered through cracks near the ceiling. The footsteps continued. One person, maybe two. Impossible to tell. My pulse hammered against my ribs. We waited, listening. The footsteps crossed the floor above us, then stopped, directly overhead, as though whoever was up there knew exactly where we were. Nobody breathed, nobody moved. Then something slid across the floor above. Paper, a note. The sound traveled her through the old ventilation shaft, followed by retreating footsteps. Running now. Fast. Gone. Just gone. For several moments nobody reacted. Then Jace whispered, "What was that?" No one answered, because none of us knew. We climbed upstairs carefully, every corner checked, every doorway cleared. Nothing. The building was empty, completely empty. No stranger, no ambush, no infected. Just silence. Then we found the note, folded neatly beside the entrance. Waiting. Addressed to no one. Simply left where we'd find it. I unfolded it. The handwriting wasn't Owen's, but it was familiar. The same handwriting used throughout parts of the investigation board. The same person who maintained the archive. The note contained only one sentence. He never reached the source. I read it twice, 3 times, trying to understand. Marisol stared over my shoulder. What does that mean? I turned the paper over. More writing covered the back. Your husband found the route. He found the schedule. He found the carriers. But he never reached the source. The carriers are not the danger. Do not follow them after dark. The words sent a chill through me. Not because they were threatening, because they sounded like a warning. A genuine warning. Someone was helping us. Someone who knew Owen. Someone who knew what happened. Then I saw the final line, and everything changed. If your daughter is still alive, bring her. The world seemed to stop. Marisol grabbed my arm. What? I couldn't answer. I was staring, reading the sentence again and again. If your daughter is still alive, bring her. Not if you are alive. Not if anyone survives. Your daughter. Specifically. Nia. The writer knew about her. Knew she existed. Knew she was alive. Knew enough to mention her directly, which meant one thing. Whoever wrote this had met Owen. Recently. Much more recently than 29 days ago. My hands shook. For the first time since this nightmare began, possibility became something tangible. Not hope. Not fantasy. Possibility. Owen might still be alive. Not because I wanted him to be. Because somebody was acting as though finding him remained achievable. Then another realization hit. A worse one. A much worse one. The writer wanted Nia. Not me, not Marisol, not Jace. Nia, my sick 7-year-old daughter. And outside, somewhere beyond the dead city, beyond the pharmacy, beyond the truck, beyond Owen's unfinished investigation, someone was still delivering medicine. Regularly, deliberately, and somehow they already knew exactly who my daughter was. The entire walk back felt wrong. Not dangerous, wrong. Danger I understood. Danger had rules. You avoided noise, avoided open streets, avoided blind corners. But the note followed me in a different way, like a splinter buried under skin. If your daughter is still alive, bring her. Not bring supplies, not bring information. Bring her, Nia. A 7-year-old girl who spent most days drawing pictures beside a window. A little girl with diabetes. A little girl who still believed her father was coming home. Nothing about that should have mattered to strangers. Yet somehow it did. The afternoon sky darkened as we crossed the city. Clouds rolled in from the river, heavy gray sheets swallowing the sunlight. By the time our apartment building appeared, rain had started falling. Thin at first, then harder. The first real storm we'd seen in weeks. I felt relieved. Rain covered sound. Rain masked movement. Rain made the infected less active, at least usually. We entered through the rear stairwell. 3 flights up, 4th floor landing, apartment 407. Home, or what passed for home now. I expected to find Nia sitting beside the window, watching the avenue, waiting. Instead, the apartment door stood open, 3 inches. My heart stopped. I drew the handgun instantly. Marisol swore under her breath. Jace lifted the crossbow. Nobody had left that door open. Nobody. The hallway suddenly felt much too quiet. I pushed the door slowly. The hinges creaked. The apartment beyond appeared empty. Living room, kitchen, window, everything looked normal. Except Nia wasn't there. Every instinct in my body screamed. Nia? No answer. I rushed inside. Bedroom, bathroom, closet. Nothing. The apartment was empty. Completely empty. The panic hit like a physical blow. NIA! Still nothing. My voice echoed through the rooms. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 3 months of fear condensed into one horrible moment. Gone. She was gone. The world narrowed into static. Then I heard something. A sound from the bedroom. Tiny, soft, a cough. I sprinted toward it. Nia sat on the floor beside the bed, wrapped in blankets, drawing, completely unaware she had nearly stopped my heart. The relief was so intense it hurt. I dropped to my knees. What are you doing? She blinked. Drawing. The answer sounded perfectly reasonable. Children could make insanity feel ordinary. I hugged her immediately. Too tightly. She squirmed. Mom. I didn't care. For several seconds I simply held her, because she'd been there, because she was safe, because I wasn't ready to lose another person. Eventually she pulled away, then pointed toward the living room. A man came. Everything froze. Marisol looked up sharply. What? Nia nodded. After you left. Every nerve in my body tightened. I crouched beside her. What man? The old man. What old man? The one with the blue coat. My pulse quickened. Describe him. She shrugged. He looked tired. Helpful. Very helpful. 7-year-old witness testimony. The foundation of every great investigation. When did he come? Before the rain? How did he get inside? He knocked. The room went silent. Knocked. Again. Just like Marisol. What did he want? Nia smiled. The smile frightened me immediately. Because it wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was recognition. He knew Daddy. The words landed heavily. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then Nia reached beside the bed and handed me a folded piece of paper. My hands began shaking before I even opened it. Because somehow I already knew. I knew. The handwriting confirmed it. Owen, my husband, without question, without doubt, a message. Short, rushed. Written recently. Tessa, trust the courier. Do not follow the truck. Follow the medicine. I found where it goes. I am close. Keep Nia safe. Love you. For a moment the room disappeared. The walls, the storm, the city. Everything vanished. Because I was holding proof. Actual proof. Not evidence from months ago, not old notes, not investigations. A recent message. Recent. Recent enough to matter. Recent enough to change everything. Marisol read it over my shoulder. Her eyes widened. He's alive. I couldn't answer. I couldn't trust myself to speak. Because if I said the words out loud, if I actually believed them, Then losing him would hurt all over again. The storm intensified after sunset. Rain hammered against the windows, wind rattled the building, thunder rolled across the city. The infected hated storms. That much we'd learned. They became unpredictable, restless, agitated. Nobody traveled during major weather events. Nobody except couriers. Apparently. The old man arrived shortly after dark. 3 knocks, same pattern, same calm rhythm. This time I opened the door immediately. He looked older than I expected. Late 60s, maybe 70. Thin, gray beard, blue raincoat, a canvas satchel slung across one shoulder. Most surprising of all, he looked healthy. Not survivor healthy, actually healthy. Clean clothes, steady posture, clear eyes, as though the apocalypse had somehow missed him. The old man glanced at Marisol. Then Jace, then me. Finally he smiled. You look exactly like Owen described. I stared. Who are you? Name's Walter. Not a fake name, not a dramatic introduction, just Walter. The simplicity made him believable. He stepped inside, removed the wet coat, then looked toward the hallway. Nia? My stomach tightened. A few seconds later, she emerged. The old man's expression softened instantly. There you are. Nia smiled back, as though she'd known him for years. Children terrified me sometimes. She trusted people based on instincts adults forgot how to use. Walter crouched carefully, then reached into his satchel. My hand immediately moved toward the pistol. He noticed. Raised both hands. No weapons. Then removed a small cardboard box, medical supplies, fresh, sealed, unopened. My breath caught. Walter handed the box directly to Nia. She looked confused. I took it, opened it. Inside sat insulin. Real insulin. Not expired, not damaged, not scavenged. Fresh. My knees nearly gave out. Walter watched quietly, giving me time, giving me space. Finally, I looked up. Where did this come from? The same place Owen found. Where? I can't tell you. The answer arrived instantly. Prepared, expected. I hated it. Why not? Because then you'd go there. I would. I know. Thunder shook the building. Walter waited for the sound to pass, then continued. Owen said you'd be stubborn. A tiny laugh escaped Nia. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. It hurt, because it sounded normal, because nothing else was. I folded my arms. How do you know my husband? Walter became serious. He saved my life. The room fell silent. How? By asking questions. Not the answer I expected. The old man leaned back in his chair, looking suddenly exhausted. There are hundreds of survivors still alive, because Owen refused to stop asking questions. The statement sounded impossible. Yet Walter spoke with complete certainty, not admiration, not exaggeration. Fact. Owen discovered something important. What? Walter looked toward the storm-darkened window. The outbreak didn't kill medicine. I frowned. What does that mean? It means somebody kept working. The exact phrase from Owen's notes. Someone is working. Walter nodded slowly. As hospitals collapsed, as cities fell, as governments disappeared. He paused. Some people never stopped. My pulse quickened. Doctors, nurses, paramedics, pharmacists. The realization began forming. Not a government. not an organization. People, ordinary people, still trying, still helping, still delivering medicine, even after civilization ended. Then Walter said something that changed everything. The infected aren't hunting the medicine. I stared. What? They're hunting the people delivering it. The apartment fell silent. Outside, thunder rolled across the ruined city. Inside, nobody moved. Because suddenly the truck made sense. The disappearances, the investigations, the restocking, the mystery. The truck wasn't bait. The truck wasn't a warehouse. The truck wasn't the source. It was a waypoint, a stop along a route, part of something much larger, something still operating, something Owen had followed all the way to the edge. Then Walter reached into his satchel one final time. This time, he removed a photograph. Recent, very recent. He slid it across the table. I looked down and stopped breathing. The photograph showed 6 people standing beside a delivery van. One of them was Owen, alive, tired, thinner, but alive. The picture couldn't have been more than 2 weeks old. 2 weeks, after 91 days. 2 weeks. My vision blurred, not from grief, not from fear, from relief so overwhelming it felt painful. Walter's voice became distant, muted, almost lost beneath the storm. But I heard the final sentence clearly. The reason I came tonight, he looked toward Nia, it's because Owen wants to bring her to him. And suddenly every certainty I had left vanished. For a long time after Walter left, nobody spoke. The photograph remained on the table between us, a simple piece of paper. Yet it had more power than any weapon in the apartment, because it changed the future. Before the photograph, Owen was a mystery. After the photograph, he became a destination. I must have looked at it 50 times, maybe more, each time searching for something new, a clue, a detail. Proof it wasn't staged. Proof it wasn't wishful thinking. The image showed Owen standing beside a white cargo van. His beard was longer, his face thinner, his shoulders narrower than I remembered. But his eyes were the same. Focused, alert, determined, alive. Most people imagine certainty brings peace. It doesn't. Certainty brings decisions, and decisions bring consequences. By midnight, I still hadn't made one. Rain continued battering the city. Nia slept beside the window. The photograph clutched against her chest. Marisol sat at the kitchen table, watching me. Finally, she broke the silence. You're going? I looked up. Maybe. No. She shook her head. You're going. I hated how obvious it sounded. Because she was right. The moment I'd seen the photograph, part of me had already left. Part of me was already crossing the city, already following Owen's trail, already trying to reach him. The problem wasn't whether I'd go. The problem was Nia. Walter's request echoed through my head. Bring her, not come alone, not meet him. Bring her. The wording mattered. A lot. Because if Owen wanted only me, Walter would have said so. Instead, he specifically wanted our daughter. That frightened me, maybe more than anything else. Marisol leaned forward. You think it's dangerous? Everything is dangerous. Different kind of dangerous. I didn't answer, because she was right again. This wasn't infected danger. This wasn't survival danger. This was uncertainty danger. The worst kind. The kind you can't predict. The kind you can't fight. The kind that waits behind unanswered questions Jace finally looked up from cleaning his crossbow. What if he's wrong? The room fell quiet. What? What if Owen's wrong? Marisol frowned. About what? About taking her. The teenager shrugged. People make mistakes. I stared at the photograph. Owen wasn't perfect. Nobody was. But he was careful, thoughtful, methodical. The kind of person who checked every door twice before sleeping. The kind of person who measured risk before taking it. The kind of person who left instructions because he knew he'd be judged by them later. If Owen wanted Nia brought somewhere, there was a reason, a real reason. Not hope, not emotion, reason. The question was whether I trusted that reason more than my fear. Then Nia spoke. The voice came from the living room, soft, sleepy, unexpected. I want to go. The three of us turned. She stood beside the couch, rubbing her eyes. Listening. Apparently she'd heard more than we realized. Children always did. You were awake? She nodded. Most of it. I should have told her to go back to bed. Should have protected her from adult conversations. Should have preserved whatever remained of childhood. Instead, I asked, why? Her answer arrived immediately. Because Daddy asked. No hesitation, no doubt, no fear, just certainty. The certainty children sometimes carry before the world teaches them caution. I looked away because I didn't have an argument. Not one she'd accept, not one I accepted myself. The decision was already forming, slowly, inevitably. Then the radio crackled. Every head snapped toward the shelf. The old battery-powered receiver rarely made noise anymore. Most channels died months ago. Most broadcasts disappeared with civilization. Yet now static filled the room, followed by a voice. A human voice. Weak, distorted, urgent. All courier stations. Repeat. Static swallowed the message, then returned. Route 7 compromised. My pulse quickened. Walter, the truck, the couriers, the medicine network. The transmission continued. Multiple losses, more static. Avoid Eastern Corridor. Then one final sentence. One sentence that changed the room instantly. Child carrier confirmed exposed. The broadcast ended. Silence returned. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Because Walter had mentioned couriers, mentioned routes, mentioned deliveries. And now, one of those routes was compromised. Meaning, whatever hidden network existed, something had gone wrong. Something serious. Marisol slowly lowered the radio. You heard that too? I nodded. The city suddenly felt different, smaller, closer, like events were accelerating, like whatever Owen had found was finally beginning to break. Then I noticed something. Nia looked frightened. Not because of the transmission, because of the phrase. Child carrier. She kept staring at the radio, as though the words meant something, as though she'd heard them before. Nia? Her eyes shifted toward me. What? What's wrong? For several seconds, she said nothing. Then, the old man said that. The room froze. What old man? The blue coat. Walter. My stomach tightened. When? The first time. I stared. The first time, Nia nodded. He came before today. The world seemed to tilt. Every instinct screamed. What are you talking about? She pointed toward the window. 2 weeks ago. Nobody spoke. Nobody even blinked. because Walter had told us tonight was his first visit. And Nia had just revealed that was a lie. The apartment felt colder after that, not physically, emotionally. The kind of cold created by uncertainty, by contradictions, by suddenly realizing you don't understand the rules anymore. I crouched beside Nia. Tell me exactly what happened. She frowned, trying to remember. Children don't organize memories the way adults do. Events blend together. Details hide in strange places. He knocked. Like tonight? She nodded. Then what? I talked to him. My pulse quickened. Through the door? No. The answer hit like a punch. No? He was downstairs. The room went silent. Marisol swore softly. Jace sat upright. I forced myself to stay calm. Nia. My voice sounded strained. When exactly did this happen? The day after my fever started. 2 weeks, almost exactly. My stomach twisted, because that timeline matched the photograph. Matched Walter, matched Owen, matched everything, and somehow made it worse. What did he say? Nia thought carefully, then answered. He asked if I still sat by the window. Nobody moved. The sentence felt strange, specific, personal, too personal. What else? He asked if I watched the truck. My heartbeat accelerated. What else? Nia looked toward the dark glass, toward the avenue below, toward her favorite spot in the entire apartment. Then she whispered, he asked if I saw the lights. The room fell completely silent, because I had no idea what she meant. What lights? The blinking lights. I stared. Nia. There. She pointed out the window, toward the pharmacy district, toward the distant avenue, toward the truck. Rain streaked across the glass. Darkness covered most of the city. Yet, far away, something flashed. Once, twice, then disappeared. A tiny light, barely visible. I stepped closer, thinking it might be lightning. It wasn't. The light flashed again. 3 times. Short, long, short. Then vanished. Jace moved beside me. What is that? Nobody answered, because none of us knew. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then another light appeared farther away. A response. Different location. Different building. Same pattern. Flash, pause, flash, flash. The city was communicating. My blood ran cold. Not radios, not phones, lights, signals, a network. Hidden in plain sight. Operating every night while we sat inside believing the city was dead. Marisol stared through the rain. Oh my God. I understood immediately. The truck, the couriers, the medicine, the routes, the deliveries, the investigation board, the signals. They were all connected. Not a secret base, not a government remnant. A human network, built from survivors, maintained manually, invisible unless you knew where to look. Then another realization hit, a worse one. Walter hadn't asked whether Nia was alive. He already knew, because somebody had been watching, not spying, observing, tracking, monitoring, the same way Nia watched the avenue every day. Someone watched her. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it raised a different question. Why? Why Nia? Why did Owen want her brought there? Why did Walter lie? Why did the note mention her specifically? And why did an entire underground medicine network seem interested in a 7-year-old girl? Then I remembered something, a detail I'd ignored earlier. The radio transmission. Child carrier confirmed exposed. The phrase returned, louder now, more important. Child carrier, not child patient, not child survivor. Carrier. The word suggested responsibility, purpose, a role. And suddenly, a possibility formed. A terrible possibility, one I didn't want to consider. I looked toward Nia, toward the insulin supplies, toward the photograph, toward the storm-darkened city, then back toward the blinking lights. The network wasn't just delivering medicine. It was protecting something, maybe someone. And for reasons I still couldn't understand, that someone might be my daughter. Outside, another signal flashed through the rain. Waiting, calling, as if the city itself was trying to guide us somewhere. And deep down, I realized the truth. The journey wasn't about finding Owen anymore. The journey was about discovering why he needed Nia more than he needed rescue. We left before sunrise, not because it was safer, because I knew if I waited another day, I might lose my nerve. The city looked different after discovering the lights. For 3 months, I'd believed I was staring at ruins. Now I saw something else. Movement beneath stillness, purpose beneath silence, life hidden inside collapse. The storm had passed overnight. The streets glistened beneath pale morning light. Water pooled in potholes. Broken glass sparkled across sidewalks. The world looked almost peaceful, until you remembered what lived inside it. Nia rode in a small wagon we'd modified during the winter. Her fever had finally begun dropping thanks to the insulin Walter delivered. Color had returned to her face. Not much. Enough. Marisol walked beside her. Jace took point. I carried Owen's photograph inside my jacket pocket, close enough to touch. Close enough to remind myself this wasn't fantasy. This was real. Somewhere ahead, my husband existed, alive. The thought felt dangerous. Every time hope grows, fear grows with it. The route followed the signal network. Buildings marked with faded symbols, tiny painted arrows hidden beneath overpasses, scratches carved into utility poles, invisible signs unless someone taught you what they meant. The network stretched across the city. Every marker pointed east, toward the industrial district, toward the river, toward whatever source Owen had been chasing. Around noon, we reached a church. Not a survivor settlement, not a fortress, a functioning waypoint. The distinction mattered. 3 volunteers occupied the building. An elderly pharmacist named Rachel, a former bus mechanic named Theo, a teenager called Mina. None carried military gear. None looked like hardened survivors. They looked like ordinary people trapped in extraordinary circumstances. Rachel nearly cried when she saw Nia. Not because she knew her, because she recognized what she represented. A child, a reminder, something worth preserving. While Nia ate soup in the kitchen, Rachel showed me the records room. Hundreds of names, handwritten logs, medical requests, supply deliveries, insulin, antibiotics, heart medication, asthma inhalers, thousands of entries. The scale stunned me. People were still being treated, still being helped, still surviving. The network reaches 6 counties now, Rachel explained. I stared. 6 counties? She nodded. We lost the government. A sad smile crossed her face. We didn't lose each other. The sentence hit harder than I expected. Because it felt true. The outbreak destroyed systems, destroyed institutions, destroyed certainty. But somehow, these people kept building connections. One delivery, one patient, one route at a time. Then I saw Owen's name. Not on a casualty list, not on a memorial, on a personnel roster. Courier coordinator. Active. Current. My knees nearly gave out. Rachel noticed immediately. First time seeing that? I nodded, unable to speak. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Your husband saved hundreds? Hundreds. Not soldiers. Not survivors in dramatic rescues. Patients. People who needed medicine. People who would have died quietly without help. The realization reshaped everything. Owen hadn't disappeared chasing answers. He'd stayed because he'd found responsibility. Then Rachel showed me a map. A massive map covering an entire wall. Colored lines stretched across counties. Routes, supply chains, distribution points, signal stations. An underground healthcare network built by ordinary people. And at the center sat one location. Riverside Processing Plant, the source, the destination, the place Owen had been trying to reach. I pointed at it. He's there. Rachel hesitated. A bad sign. Then, maybe. My pulse quickened. What does that mean? The pharmacist looked tired suddenly. Older. He was there 3 weeks ago. The room fell silent. 3 weeks. Not yesterday, not today. 3 weeks. Close enough to hurt. Far enough to worry. Then alarms began ringing downstairs. Not electronic alarms. Human alarms. Voices. Shouts. Urgent movement. Rachel's expression changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. The route. She rushed toward the door. The eastern route just failed. For the first time since meeting her, she looked genuinely terrified, and that frightened me more than any infected ever had. The church transformed in seconds. People ran between rooms. Maps appeared. Radios crackled. Supply crates moved. No panic, just urgency. The kind created by practiced disaster. I followed Rachel downstairs. The main hall buzzed with activity. Mina stood beside a radio operator, face pale, hands trembling. What happened? Rachel didn't waste time. Convoy missed check-in. My stomach tightened. Convoy, medicine convoy, the network's lifeline. The radio operator adjusted a dial. Static filled the room. Then a broken transmission emerged. Fragments, pieces, enough. This bridge, static. Carriers down. More static. Don't let them. The message died completely. Silence followed. Heavy silence. The kind people recognize when bad news is coming. Theo cursed softly. Nobody corrected him. Nobody objected, because everyone felt the same thing. The route wasn't delayed. The route was lost. Rachel turned toward me. Now you understand. I did. Finally. The truck, the signals, the couriers, the secrecy. None of it existed to protect supplies. It existed to protect people. Medicine mattered. But carriers mattered more. Without carriers, medicine became useless. Without people willing to move through infected territory, everything collapsed. Then I noticed Nia. She stood near the doorway listening. Watching. Understanding more than a child should. Again. Rachel followed my gaze. Then something surprising happened. The older woman smiled. Not sadly. Warmly. Knowingly. You still don't understand why Owen asked for her." The room seemed to stop. My pulse quickened. "What?" Rachel crouched beside Nia. The little girl immediately relaxed around her. Comfortable, familiar, as if she'd known her forever. That realization struck me instantly. Not known her, heard about her, many times. Rachel looked back at me. Owen talks about her constantly. A lump formed in my throat. The pharmacist continued. Every root meeting, every planning session, every difficult decision. My vision blurred slightly. Rachel squeezed Nia's shoulder. "Your husband built half this network around one idea." I stared. "What idea?" The answer came softly. "If children don't survive this." Her eyes moved around the room, toward the exhausted volunteers, toward the radios, toward the medicine crates, toward the people still trying. "Then none of this means anything." Silence followed. Nobody argued, because nobody disagreed. Not one person. The truth settled heavily over the hall. This network wasn't preserving medicine. It wasn't preserving infrastructure. It wasn't preserving systems. It was preserving futures. Children represented future. Children represented possibility. Children represented reasons. And suddenly I understood. Not all of it. Enough. Nia wasn't important because of some secret, not because she carried information, not because she was special, because she was ordinary. A child worth saving. Proof the effort mattered. Proof humanity still mattered. The realization almost made me laugh. After all the mystery, the answer was heartbreakingly simple. Then the church doors burst open. A courier stumbled inside, alone, bleeding from a head wound, exhausted, terrified. The room erupted. People rushed forward, caught him before he fell. The man struggled to speak. Rachel knelt beside him. What happened? His answer arrived between ragged breaths. The bridge. Everyone froze. The courier swallowed hard. They found the bridge. My pulse quickened. Who found the bridge? The man looked directly at me. Not Rachel. Not Theo. Me. Then he spoke the sentence that shattered everything. The infected. Silence. Absolute silence. Because the bridge wasn't a location. It was the route connecting the medicine network to the processing plant. The source, the center, the place Owen had last been seen. The courier's face turned pale. His voice dropped to a whisper. They're learning. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The infected weren't supposed to learn. Adapt, coordinate, understand infrastructure. Yet, judging by the terror in the room, this wasn't the first sign, just the worst. The courier grabbed Rachel's sleeve, desperate. The plant sent a message. Rachel leaned closer. What message? The man's eyes found mine again, then Nia, then the photograph sticking from my jacket pocket. And finally, he whispered, Tell Tessa. Owen says they're out of time. The room disappeared. Everything disappeared. Because after 92 days of silence, my husband had finally sent me a message. And it wasn't a greeting. It wasn't reassurance. It wasn't love. It was a warning. We left the church that same afternoon. There was no debate, no vote, no dramatic discussion. When someone sends a message saying they're out of time, delay becomes a decision of its own. Rachel came with us. Theo came too. 3 additional couriers joined the journey. The route east crossed the river, then followed abandoned industrial roads toward the processing plant. toward the source, toward Owen. The closer we traveled, the stranger the city became. Not emptier, organized. That was the unsettling part. Roadblocks appeared in specific places. Not random, strategic. Supply caches remained untouched despite being visible. Signal markers increased. Observation posts overlooked critical intersections. Someone had spent months shaping this territory. Building defenses, creating routes, preparing for something or someone. Near sunset, we reached the bridge. The bridge. The one the courier had mentioned. The one the infected had supposedly found. The sight stopped all of us. Vehicles clogged the roadway. Not crashed, positioned. Hundreds of abandoned cars arranged like barriers. Like somebody intentionally blocked the crossing. Theo stared. That wasn't there last week. A chill spread through me. The infected didn't build barricades. They couldn't. Could they? No, impossible. Then Rachel pointed. Movement, far below, on the riverbank. I raised the binoculars. My stomach tightened instantly. The infected, dozens of them, standing, watching, not wandering, watching, the bridge, the road, the approaches. Like sentries. Every story I'd told myself about them began falling apart. They weren't becoming smarter. Not exactly. They were becoming coordinated. The difference mattered. Something was influencing behavior, creating patterns, creating pressure, creating danger the network had never faced before. We crossed after dark, quietly. Slowly. Every step felt borrowed. Every shadow felt alive. Yet nothing attacked. Nothing moved. The infected simply watched. And somehow, that was worse. 2 hours later, we saw the processing plant. Lights glowed inside. Real lights, generators, electricity, life. For the first time in months, I saw a functioning facility. Not survival. Operation. The gates opened before we reached them. People emerged immediately. Doctors, mechanics, drivers, volunteers. Exhausted faces. Determined faces. Human faces. The network wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a handful of survivors. It was hundreds, maybe more. And standing near the gate was Owen. For a moment I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 92 days. 92 days of uncertainty. Fear, hope, grief. Waiting. And suddenly there he was. Real, alive. My husband. His beard had grown longer. His face looked thinner, older somehow. But his eyes were unchanged. The second he saw Nia, everything else disappeared. He ran, not toward me, toward her. And honestly, that felt right. Nia launched herself from the wagon. The collision nearly knocked him over. Neither cared, neither let go. I watched them hold each other beneath floodlights and generator noise and the end of the world. And for the first time in months, I cried. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly. The way exhausted people cry when carrying weight for too long. Eventually, Owen looked up. Our eyes met. No speech, no cinematic reunion, just understanding. He knew what I'd endured. I knew what he'd sacrificed. That was enough, for a while. Then I noticed something. The expression on his face. Relief. Yes. Love. Absolutely. But also urgency. The same urgency carried by every message he'd sent, every warning, every note. The problem wasn't over, not even close. Later that night, after Nia finally fell asleep in a real medical bed, Owen told me the truth. And the truth was far stranger than anything I'd imagined. The infected weren't evolving. They were adapting to pressure, learning routes through repetition, learning habits through observation, learning patterns because humans repeated them. The medicine network had become predictable. Predictability was dangerous. Every convoy, every bridge, every route, every schedule. The infected didn't need intelligence. They needed opportunity, and opportunity was growing fast. The bridge was only the beginning. The network needed to change immediately, or everything would collapse. I finally understood why he'd stayed, why he never came home. Because he wasn't trying to save one family anymore. He was trying to save thousands. And every day he delayed increased the chances that nobody received medicine at all. The realization hurt. But it also made sense. For the first time since he left, I understood the choice he made, and why he hated making it. 3 months later, the pharmacy truck finally disappeared. Not because it failed, because it was no longer needed. The route changed, the signals changed, the network changed, everything changed. That was how it survived. Adaptation, movement, people refusing to stop. Nia's favorite place is no longer the apartment window. The apartment itself is gone now, abandoned like thousands of others. Instead, she sits beside the dispatch tower overlooking the processing yard. She waves at departing couriers, counts returning vehicles, keeps track of names. Sometimes she pretends she's in charge. Nobody corrects her. Not because she's right, because it makes people smile. The world isn't fixed. Far from it. Cities remain dangerous. The infected remain dangerous. Every supply run carries risk. Every route demands sacrifice. But something survived the collapse. Not governments, not institutions, not certainty. People. Ordinary people. People who kept driving, kept delivering, kept helping, kept showing up. The last time I asked Owen whether he regretted leaving that morning for medicine, he thought about it for a long time. Then he looked toward the yard, where volunteers loaded supplies into a departing truck, toward the children playing nearby, toward Nia, and finally toward me. I regret not being able to come home sooner. Then he smiled, the tired smile of a man who carried too much responsibility for too long. But I never stopped trying. Sometimes that's the best ending the world allows. Not perfect safety, not permanent happiness. Just people keeping promises longer than anyone thought possible. And when the sun sets beyond the river and the signal lights begin blinking across the horizon, I still watch them. Not because I'm waiting anymore. Because I know what they mean. Someone is working. And somewhere out there, another family is about to receive the help they thought would never come.